Hey, this is Jeff Lumpkin. I wanted to share some work I've done on U.S. counties. So I've collected data on all 3,143 counties in the United States. I now have 116 different columns of data. This data comes from the U.S. Census, Center for Disease Control, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and some election data that I have for three presidential races, 2008, 2012, and 2016. I've loaded this data into Power BI and created a visualization using Sandance. Sandance is a visualization which was created by Microsoft Research. So what we're looking at here is the population by county for all 3,100 counties in the lower 48 states. We see the greatest concentration of population along the east and west coasts, as well as here in the Great Lakes region, stretching from Milwaukee and Chicago east along upstate New York. One reason why I really like Sandance is the ability to change metrics or change columns very, very rapidly. So here, I'm going to change the color by from the 2014 population bucket to income per capita. So now we can see where wealth is distributed in the U.S. and see that much of it is here in the Northeast, some centers here in mid-California, and then here in the center of the country in Colorado. Another related metric is the poverty rate. So now we're looking at poverty across the lower 48 and see greatest centers of poverty are down here in the South, as well as right here in Appalachia, so Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio. Another interesting metric is the college graduation percentage. So this is the percentage of the population which has college degrees. Blue having the highest percentages and red being the lowest percentages. Now I'm going to change the type here. So on the vertical axis, I'll change to income per capita. The horizontal axis will be poverty rate. So now we're looking at those three metrics: college graduation percentages, income per capita, and poverty rate. And not surprisingly, there's a strong positive correlation between college graduation and income per capita. So more college graduates lead to higher income per capita in a county, whereas lower college graduation rates lead to a higher poverty rate. One interesting metric that I came across was the percentage of firms owned by women within a county. And here I see also a positive correlation between a higher percentage of firms owned by women and higher income per capita. To come back to the latitude and longitude, so we're getting a view of the U.S. We'll pick latitude along the vertical axis, longitude along the horizontal axis, and now I'm going to change to the percentage of the vote in the 2008 presidential election, which is Democratic or Republican. These types of maps have been seen before. So here we see along the east and west coast, lots of Republican voting. Down here in the south, as well as down here on this southern tip of Texas, high percentage of votes are Democratic. Otherwise, in the center of the country and in the south, very high Republican voting. Now we'll change to the 2008 election. Sorry, from the 8 election to the 12 election. And my general sense is that counties became more Democratic over the course of those 4 years. When we come to the 16 election, however, it's a different story. So here we see much of the U.S., particularly in the center of the United States, became more Republican in the 2016 election than had been the case in the 2012 election. To get a clearer sense of that, I'm going to come back to the 12 election and change my chart type from scatter to scatter 3D. And the layer that we have is the counties which switched from Republican to Democrat in the 2012 election compared to the 2008 election. So here we see there are 11 counties, 1 on the West Coast and then 10 back here in the East. It is a much different story when we compare to the 2016 election. So here we're going to look at the counties that switched Democratic to Republican in 2016 and see instead of 11 counties, there are more than 200 different counties which made that switch, centered in the upper Midwest and in the Northeast. So where the Democrats really, I think, lost a lot of ground in 16 compared to 12 was in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota, as well as here in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York. I'm going to change chart types again to a column chart. And now I'm going to change this horizontal axis to the the median income bucket. and we'll color this by the percentage of the vote in the 2016 election. And so as we look from lower median incomes on the left to higher median incomes on the right, what I see is that the percentage of votes were very high for the poorest sections of the population, as well as for the wealthiest sections of the population, but it's in this large middle group where Democrats, I think, have struggled to deliver a message that appeals to this element of the demographic. Now, I'm going to change the size here to reflect the 2014 population. And when I do that, another particularly interesting observation comes to light, and that is the fact that the largest counties tended to vote Democratic. And this is very, very clear here. The larger the size of the box indicates the size of the population within a county. So large counties or urban counties voted Democrat. Smaller counties, rural counties, voted Republican by and large. I'm going to switch back to latitude and longitude and explore some other types of metrics. One of the most interesting, as well as frightening, was a look at fatality rates from drug overdoses. So I have 15 years of data starting in 1999, running out through 2012. So if we look at the fatality rate per 100,000 of population, 21 or higher being dark blue, down to 0 being red. Really here in the center of Appalachia is where this great concentration of narcotics overdoses took place. And what I'm going to do is just select this one section of the country right here, and we'll just drill in and take a look at what was going on, where those counties were. So again, dark blue, where the greatest fatality rate was taking place, and we can get information about those counties. So we see that this was Floyd County, Kentucky, West Virginia, really centered here in Appalachia, in coal country. Now, coming back out, I will restore this view. So now we're looking at the entire U.S. again. I'm going to jump ahead from 99 to 2008, and we see a dramatic increase, again in Appalachia, but also here in the middle of the country and spreading throughout the West, come to 11. And in 2011, it appears to have grown much more, but by the time we get to 14, it is almost pervasive everywhere in the United States, where we see very high levels of drug overdoses. A similar view I get from looking at obesity rates. So my earliest year here is 2004, and we see the highest levels of obesity down here in the Deep South, perhaps in the Carolinas and in the upper Midwest. By the time we get out to 2013, obesity appears rampant everywhere we look in the United States. So I think this data is really interesting to look at from a number of different perspectives. One of my goals is to keep adding to this data set to get more and more views of what's going on in the United States. I hope this has been of interest to you. Thanks very much.